All right. Hi. So, my name is Cheyenne. For those of you who don't know me, keep in mind I am very forgetful. So if I forget your name, please do not be offended. Um, we will introduce you all to the other humans later. For now, we're going to do a quick lesson, and I do mean quick because I don't have a lot of things to say on this topic. But if you guys have questions, I can definitely branch off topics. I watch way too many murder mysteries. Anyway, um, today's topic for the lesson is murder mysteries, specifically inventing your own fake poisons, because no, I'm not going to teach you how to use real poison. Bad. Okay, to be fair, I also taught you how to get out of kidnapping, so I feel like that's a different topic. So, with that being said, obviously, if you're writing a murder mystery or you're writing a very particularly suspenseful fantasy novel, you might want to try and murder someone. You might want to have, your villain be like, whoop, whoop, few drops and you're dead. Question or comment?
I actually have a poison that I actually developed already, and it's called sleeping poison. It usually
Very cool for you. We
it's
are going to
only
move on with the lesson and we can talk about it
deadly
later.
for a few.
Would love
It's only deadly for a few hybrids.
So, no, chloroform. Well, technically, chloroform can poison someone, but no. All right. So, with that being said, first we got to talk about poisons versus venoms. Technically, both can kill you. The only difference is whether or not it's being ingested or being injected. Generally, technically, you can inject a poison though. Venoms are typically from an animal being like, I bite you. It's the analogy of if you bite it, do you die? Or if it bites you, do you die? So if it bites you and you die, venom. If you bite it and you die, that's called poison. Which is why it gets so confusing because if you extract a venom from something that could bite you and kill you, and then put it in something, technically, does that make it a poison? Who's to say? Don't know. I'm not answering that question today. Just posing theoreticals. Um, with that being said, second, you got to decide whether this is a slow acting poison or a fast acting poison. Not all poisons are as dramatic as, they have them in theaters and plays where it's like, poison! Immediately. Not generally the case. There's a few that are like that, but not a lot. Most of them are slow acting. Most of them you think you have a really bad case of the flu and then suddenly you're dead. Yes, question or comment?
Question.
Yes, shoot.
So, with the slow acting poison, is it
Yes.
like those things where you slowly poison someone by adding more?
Could do both. So, for example, this is actually something that I learned from a rando.
What do you mean a rando?
Well, I was scrolling through Instagram and I like to do murder mystery, and so it was like, hey, by the way, this is a great way to write murder mystery. No, I mean, yes, they are a real person who did a thing on murder in the 1950s. Anyway, one of the things they mentioned was the fact that sometimes you want to use common household things. So a thing they commonly did in the 1950s was they would sprinkle a tiny bit of rat poison over someone's food if they wanted to kill them slowly, because of the fact that arsenic in massive doses will instantaneously kill you, but in small doses, yeah, but in small doses, it will slowly kill you and make you just seem like you got really sick mysteriously and died. Um, now, obviously, more people are aware of that, so it's harder to make it seem like it was a mysterious illness, considering the fact that, people know about it now. Back then, they didn't know that you could slowly poison someone with arsenic. They thought it was always instantaneous. So now that we're a little more knowledgeable, that's not exactly easy. But that's why we're talking about fake poison today. Going back to the fake topic. Um, so there are some poisons that do poison you slowly, though, in general. Depending on how much you ingest, it does not matter. It will still be slow just because of the way it kills you. For example, there is a mushroom, don't remember what it's called, but there's a mushroom that once you ingest it, you'll just be like, oh man, I have like really bad indigestion. I'm super sick with the flu, and then you're dead 2 hours later. So as a result, be careful with eating mushrooms. First of all, first lesson you can learn from that: don't eat a random mushroom unless you're 100% on it.
And also eat mushroom. Got it.
Now,
They look like Mario mushrooms.
funnily enough, actually, yes, but also no. The Amanita something, the uncommon name for the death cap. The death cap mushroom is actually white. It's not red with white spots. Fun fact.
If someone like makes it
So
red with white spots,
they could, but yeah, it's actually originally white. Looks like a normal mushroom you'd like put in your stew. Looks like a portobello. Don't put it in your stew though; you will die. A slow, painful death. With that being said, there are lots of ways you can easily slip things like that in there, especially if you're doing a fantasy based in kind of a medieval setting. That's a nice, easy one where you can do herbs, potions, poisons out of mushrooms, where you can just be like, oh no, was it an accident? Whoopsies. Um, and you can also come up with what symptoms they might have, because generally, if a poison doesn't kill you instantly, you do have some symptoms of being poisoned. Like I said, you have indigestion, you might have your throat swell up, like something is wrong. Your body's trying to tell you something is wrong. Typically, though, if it's a good enough poison, it's very, very subtle, much like the indigestion one, where it's like, man, that gives food poisoning. It's like, nope, actually, your body's trying desperately to save you because you're dying.
It's just regular poisoning.
Just regular poison. When it's not food poisoning, it's regular poisoning. So, with that being said, you gotta keep in mind what those kind of symptoms look like, especially if you're making up your own poison. You can always have random things, like, I don't know, you could have, like, they're super sensitive to being bruised now, or they have flu-like symptoms, or they get really feverish, or all sorts of things. It's your poison. You can make it up. That's the beauty of it. As long as you keep it consistent. The other thing is, obviously, in a fantasy universe, you have potions. Nice thing about potions and magic is that you can just say, it's poisonous now, yay. But in general, if you're building your world correctly, you do want to have a list of symptoms that you will have, unless it is instant. If it's instant, you will still have some symptoms, though, similar to, for example, arsenic. Arsenic is one of those ones where oftentimes you feel a little dizzy, you feel a little woozy, and then you kind of hit the floor like a hot potato. Yes.
So for sleeping poison, some of the side effects some of the symptoms I've developed is cold sweat, heart
That works.
racing, and
Makes sense.
then drowsiness.
That all makes sense.
And sleeping poison, it doesn't really kill you; it just knocks you unconscious, and nobody knows when you're gonna wake up.
Ooh.
So there is a very big risk
So it's
for when
it's
you're
poison
unconscious.
in the regard that you're comatose.
So basically, nobody knows when you're gonna wake up. It could be years, and most people die of starvation.
Fascinating. That's a really cool poison. Thank you for sharing. See, that's why I was like, at some point we'll have a better point to share this. So, thank you. That was awesome. So, with that being said, you can come up with unique ones like that, where it's like you don't actually die of the poison, but you die of the results of the poison as well. For example, another one is cyanide. If you take cyanide, you will start frothing at the mouth.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the fact that all of your cells are going into overdrive, being like, help me! Trying to eject this poison. And there's all sorts of other things like that. If you're doing something like a historical fiction and you're not doing a made up poison, I would highly recommend A, reading more murder mysteries, because they come up with some creative stuff. B, I would also recommend doing research into the time period, because there are oftentimes popular poisons for the time period, like ones that were very much like, dude, I heard about this from so and so who murdered their abusive ex or whatever. Like, it got passed around. Like, people would tell each other about these kinds of things. It's not exactly a great thing to do, but I guess it's it's part of life.
Yes, murder.
Yes, murder is part of life. Sadly, it shouldn't be, but it is. With that being said, most of the time, if you're going with a modern thing, you could do chemicals from around the house or all sorts of things, and not all chemicals that will hurt you though will kill you. So as a result, I would say in general, make sure that you know 100% if it will kill you first, because there are lots of things that say call poison control if you ingest this, but that does not mean you have been poisoned. That means you will get very, very sick. It doesn't always mean that. It's just saying, please see a doctor. Yes, question or comment?
I was gonna say, or you could be like, this doesn't kill you, but it kills most people, and you could like do like a cool Wesley thing.
This is true. You could do where they're like more immune to the poison, or you could do something like crazy where it's like because of their genetic lineage, they're immune to the poison. There are some weird things like that. Are they rare? Yes, but you can do that. Another thing as far as like being immune or being resistant to poison goes is that typically when it comes to being immune or resistant to poisons, it's due to a genetic fault or rather benefit in your DNA. Or if you're, yeah, exactly. Genetic mutation, however you want to call it, whether it's positive or negative, technically it's incorrect DNA, but if it's doing something good for you, I guess it's good. So, with that being said, though, also it does depend on the amount. So you got to make sure that whatever poison you pick for your historical stuff is actually going to be in the right amount. If you're like 2 drops and he dies, and someone like Googles it and is like, actually it takes a gallon, they're gonna be a little sad. So you want to make sure you know your dosages for your poison as well. Like how much of your fantasy poison does it take for this person to actually die? Or does it just make them really really sick?
Okay.
Yes.
With poisons,
Yes.
kind of going with like, oh, so running kind of
Mhm.
the opposite.
Yeah.
What if like they are like very sick or weak,
Mhm.
and you give them a little bit of poison that wouldn't normally kill someone, but
It would kill
kills
them. Yes, absolutely. That is a good thing to take into to factor in. Is the condition of the person being poisoned. If they're a really hardy, strong, healthy individual, it's probably going to take a little extra. Whereas if they're a weak, frail Victorian boy, then it's probably going to be like boop on the nose with poison and he's dead. So you gotta take into account their physical state. That is a good point. Moving right along. So with that being said, um, the last thing that I wanted to mention is hallucinogens. Now, this one is not necessarily a poison, but a lot of people consider it a poison because of the fact that if you exactly it poisons your mind. Thank you, perfect. All right. With that being said, this is kind of the Scooby Doo analogy, right? Where it's someone normal, not necessarily trying to get away with murder, but trying to get away with getting rid of their reputation, like making them disreputable, making them seem like, oh, the king's going crazy, woohoo, and it's like, no, he's not crazy. He's straight up been poisoned. And even if he doesn't die, it's still a poisoning of the mind. No longer take you seriously. They think you're nuts. And so as a result of that, even you could be saying, "Oh my gosh, my brother's trying to kill me" all day, and they'd be like, "Yeah, and the unicorns are real too." Wink. Like they aren't gonna believe you. There actually are a lot of things like that that are actually common and pretty easy to get a hold of, according to murder mystery shows, though. So don't take me out of account on that. But um, a lot of these types of things that are hallucinogens are just improperly fermented things or different things like that. For example, if you improperly ferment wheat, it actually creates a hallucinogen so potent that within 1 hour you are like absolutely batcrap crazy. And literally, you can even bake the wheat, and it does not bake the fermentation out. So as a result, you could bake them like a muffin and be like, "Sup, bro? Eat a muffin," and they're like, "Sure." And then the next moment, they're trying to strangle you. Like they go nuts very fast. That one's actually a very common one, which is what got associated with witchcraft because of the fact that a lot of wheat would be stored improperly during the winter, and then a lot of people would be hallucinating because they're eating bad wheat, and then they'd be like, "She's a witch," and it's like, bro, I'm just not eating the same contaminated, crazy wheat that you are. That doesn't mean I'm a witch. But at the same time, unfortunately, that's kind of how it worked. So similarly, you could have contaminated food, or you could have an actual hallucinogenic mushroom or something like that. There are also other kinds of hallucinogens that are harder to get a hold of. For example, this is one that's from an Agatha Christie novel, and I did look it up. It is actually legitimate, which is crazy to think about. If you have bees, bees make honey, right? Pretty calm. If you get pollen from a specific flower and you just plant that flower all around their hive, they will start pollinating those flowers. The honey produced from those flowers makes you insane. So that's a fun fact. Unfortunately, it also makes you very, very weak, so you can continue being poisoned. You get one dose of this in maybe your tea or something like this, and you start hallucinating, but you're also very, very frail and you become very weak, and as a result, they can continue poisoning you and keeping you nuts. That was a very sad Agatha Christie novel, come to think of it. But anyway, Agatha Christie is a great writer for a reason. So, any other questions about murder mystery slash poison slash poison for Cusco's poison? I don't know. I'm tired. All right. So, no poison poison questions? Cool. I figured it would be a short lesson because I figured you guys are probably not doing too much poisoning in your novel, or if you are, it's doing one or two. But at the same time, I was like, I gotta mention this because it is something that a lot of people like to use as a plot device to be like, whoopsies, this character found out about too much murder. Yes, question.
This is actually a comment. So, I actually, in my book, I actually plan to have some sort of creature that you can actually get its venom to, and it does wear off after a while. But if you get the venom in you, like in your bloodstream, your whole body goes numb in seconds.
Oh, dude, that's just straight up
And
sounds.
that's how actually that's actually how one of my book characters actually gets kidnapped, and he's like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like he's unable to speak for a solid hour.
So is it numb or paralyzed?
Like paralyzed for
Okay,
paralyzed.
I just wanted to clarify because I was like,
Right,
wait.
sorry.
No, you're okay. But yeah, paralysis venoms are actually very common. It's why pufferfish is illegal in most countries because of the fact that if you cut around that pufferfish gland just wrong, it can literally paralyze your lungs and you just die.
Oh.
So keep in mind with paralysis poisons, it does have to be used in very, very, very small dosages because, for example, with pufferfish, you get one drop of that stuff and you will die. So just keep in mind if you're doing something like that, where it's not necessarily like murderous poison, but it's like paralysis or something like that, just take into account A, how much is being used, and B, also take into account how careful is this person being about the dosages? Are they going to accidentally poison them? Yes,
So
question.
like the creature that you can get it from, I wanted to call it a sand lionfish. So basically, no, they're actually terrifying. They have these spikes all over them, and one entire spike, if you were to get an entire one of those, it puts you at very high risk of being incredibly weak to poisons.
Fascinating.
But that's because it just weakens your immune system because of. But
Makes
like
sense.
it's just a single drop just makes you feel numb for a while.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's why it's important to know these amounts and different things like that. Know how careful your characters are being. Do they know these things, or are they just like, I don't know, dump it all in, and then they accidentally kill someone, and they're like, I was just trying to make him fall asleep for a little bit or something. Yeah, so make sure you know the competency of your character as well. Are they clever enough to figure this out, or are they stupid and they need some help? All right. I'm going to turn the lesson off for today. Reminder, we have the summer writing contest going on currently. The summer writing contest entries are all due on August 1st or sooner. When I say on August 1st, it does have to be before the library closes. If it's after the library closes, you're just gonna have to drop it off in the book drop and hope that I get it. So preferably before the library closes.
On front door.
Good luck with that. We have had some people try to like shove it under our front doors, but you might set the alarm off, so please don't do that.
Just like throw it through, right?
But anyway, with that being said, if you guys have any other questions about writing or things like that, feel free to ask me. For those of you who are new, I am a professional editor as well, so I'm more than happy to give you feedback on your writing. However, if you just want to sit and write and like get to know the other writers in the room, that is also fantastic. I'm going to turn off the video now, and like I said, ask me any questions you want. Chill, whatever you need, I can try to provide.